Welcome back to the Mayhem Performance Podcast. I'm going to be honest with all of you. We had a topic in mind and then we started talking. We were reminiscing about the old days of CrossFit. Mike, you've been in it since
2005, 6.
2005, 6. I didn't even know it was around at that point. Me and Jake have been in it since, early 2010s, and it's been a long journey for all of us. And obviously we're still in the sport. And it's a sport that we love, but we were talking about all of the things that have changed, what has gone right, what has gone poorly in our view. And we just wanted to spend the next 20 or 25 minutes talking about those things. And I think the first thing I wanted to touch on was the way that you got into sport and kind of like what the testing body looked like then versus now, because this is like one of the craziest things. You told this story and some people remember this, that they tested the same movement twice at one regional back in early 2010s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, backing up before that, 2005, there was no sport.
Right.
So we have to think about that perspective first, that when CrossFit started, there was no sport. That was not the point of it. The point was just to maximize your performance in life, literally.
It was like the true grassroots movement of like, hey, you're just going to get ready for whatever life throws at you.
Exactly. And the rebels or whatever, the early adopters were like going against the grain with everything. So that's really what it came down to, which obviously, if you know me, fits my personality. Like if everybody's doing this, I'm going to go the opposite way. Yeah. And so you immediately get the credit of saying like, well, I'm a CrossFitter, so I'm fitter than you are. I don't care what you're doing. But no, yeah, when we the competitiveness started on the forums where you're literally posting your scores of the workout of the day and trying to be the best on there. And then the testing started in 2007. But yeah, like it was literally the mindset of I'm going to be fit for whatever they throw at me. And at that time we had no idea what that was going to be. I mean, in 2009 gets talked about a lot. The games there went from like 4 workouts the year before to like 10 workouts in 2009 and just destroyed people.
Yeah, like brutal.
But everybody was like, yeah, this is great. This is perfect.
It's kind of like a natural evolution though, right? 2005, like people are just jumping online. It's kind of still early internet, which is kind of crazy to think about, but like you are following the forum. It's just like, what's the workout of the day? Then you still want to post your score. I remember the days when I started, even like the blog format was huge, right? Was huge. Like OPEX back in the day, OPT back in the day, they had their blog, what was it called at the
Big
time?
Dogs
Big
blog.
Dogs was it? Yeah. And I would go on there and just do workouts. Like that's kind of how I got into it. And it's like, how good am I? And of course, you beat some people, you lose to others, but it was like a fun challenge and it just was true CrossFit. But that natural evolution to go from, hey, everyone's just doing it online and still you're competing against yourself, but also with those online to, hey, we have to have some kind of competition for this where everyone can come together.
Something interesting I was just thinking about was I don't remember having the mindset that like looking at scores that were 4 minutes faster than me and being like, oh, that person's cheating. It was like, how can I get to there? Like that person's got it. Whereas now, like immediately you see a score that's better than yours and like, no way.
Cheating.
They're cheating.
They're on drugs.
Yeah. So that's just an interesting side note.
I'm going to pull this into a completely different thing. I genuinely think that that's just the culture that we live in.
Yeah.
Right. Like social media has created the kind of almost, I'm going to be honest, softness in our culture where it can't be me. That's the problem. It has to be someone else. And so therefore they must be cheating or therefore they must be, taking something that's performance enhancing or whatever it may be.
Well, this to that point, this was the people that early adopted were kind of the beginning of extreme ownership. If we want to take that term, like it was all people who wanted to just take ownership of what they were doing. They wanted to excel in everything that they were doing. And they were looking at other people to see what the potential was instead of looking at other people to see they're probably not doing as good. I'm looking at all these other people online. I can still remember names and being like, man, if I could get to that point, like that's my new benchmark. I know what I did, but I'm going to try to get to that point and whether it's nutrition, being as strict on nutrition or the training or whatever it was trying to optimize everything in life.
Yeah. I think those that are still doing it that way now are the ones that are usually successful.
Yeah.
There are a lot of still great stories out there that, someone starts maybe in their late teens and they're not quite there yet, but then they just like really grind hard and they do take that extreme ownership to your point, Mike, where it's like, hey, I know I'm not there yet. Like I see these games athletes and they're so amazing, but I'm just going to keep working and see how close I can get. And obviously that dream works out for some people and for most of us, it doesn't, but there's still something special about it when you say, I can't do a ring muscle up, and then a year later I can do 5 ring muscle ups, or I can't handstand walk, but then I mastered that skill. And that was one of the reasons I got into it, right? Like I played football and I loved being competitive, but obviously once that came to an end, I needed to find something else to do. And it was a natural fit for me to find something that was really challenging, that forced me to get outside of my comfort zone and learn all these new skills. And that's how I felt. And I think, by the way, that's how most people fall in love with the sport.
Well, I think to your original question of like the testing body and the differences, I think we used to much more have the mindset of like the testing is going to push me to a new level. I know that I'm going to see things that I've never seen before, and I'm okay with that because I want it to challenge me and push me to a new level. To your point, in 2012 was they had deadlifts in the first workout in Diane, and then they had deadlifts at 345 in the last workout of the weekend. They also had 100-pound dumbbell snatches, which to that point, nobody had done anything over a 50. And they just all of a sudden throw in 100. And we're like, we got to get, like literally me and another guy that made it in that region had to go buy a 100-pound dumbbell because we didn't have a 100-pound dumbbell. And it took me like 4 weeks leading up to it to even get one rep.
Yeah.
And so it's just like you're looking, but you didn't question anything.
Right.
You didn't question.
Of course, now everyone's complaining about all the squats in the Mayhem Classic last year.
We pulled off the ground like 5 times out of the 6 workouts. Like,
Are you advocating we return to that, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
I'm advocating that the athletes return to that mindset of not worrying so much about, and this is probably partially our fault as well, because we talk about the right way to do things, the right way to program movements, the right way to sequence things. But I think the athletes need to worry less about that and be like, no, I don't care what they throw at me. I'm going to try to be as fit as possible to be able to handle whatever is thrown at me.
Do you think, like, I think you just said yes. Some of it is our fault as coaches. Like do we overcomplicate things, or do we overcomplicate the communication to the athletes and then it makes them, for lack of a better word, soft?
I think I don't know if overcomplicated is the right word, but I think in our training, we talk about why we're doing certain things and how to approach things the right way to get the best adaptation long-term and to make the most progress in linear progressions and things like that, and not random CrossFit. That gets blurred with testing, and that's not testing. So if we're testing, and from CrossFit's definition, you're going to hit a whole bunch of different things. And if you hit the same thing twice, so be it. But the way you look at training shouldn't be the same way you look at testing, which y'all just did one on that. But the mindset of like, this is a bad competition set of tests for the weekend because of overlapping movements or too many movements towards this bias or whatever, I think is a flawed way of thinking as an athlete and limits you, because now you're too concerned getting caught up in those negative thoughts as opposed to just trying to accomplish the test.
Yeah. I think what's true about that is like, even if what the athlete is saying or what the coach is complaining about is true, like, hey, that was tested 3 times. It's like too biased. Yeah. It's like, no, everyone's still doing the same thing.
Right.
And then the athlete's perspective, even if it hurts them in the competition, should be, I need to go out there and just control the controllables. I'm going to do my very best and try to move up the leaderboard with what I have. Like at that point, we're not in charge of writing the programming, and the athlete shouldn't be in charge of writing the programming. The whole point is it's a test for the athletes to challenge them with constant variance. And so I do agree with you fully that I think, as you know, the coaching body in general could probably do a better job of this, me included, because sometimes I complain about it, but we should go back to kind of I'll call it the good old days of just like, hey, I'm going to continue to pursue excellence in everything that I do. And even if the workouts that come out don't favor me, I'm going to go out there and give my best effort every single time.
Hey, Josh, should I stir the pot a little? All right. Yeah. He said yes. Wouldn't that be like, do you remember the LeBron issue where it was like, this is a little slightly different context, but it was, he made a political statement and some sort of conservative anchor was like, shut up and dribble. Like that was the whole, isn't that a bit of what you're doing? Like going, hey, athletes, just be tough. Stop being soft. Just show up. Let the coaches or the designers of the tests or the sport, the Castros, worry about whether the test is good or not. Just show up and be tough. Yeah. You know, I can think of like guys like Fikowski or Vellner just like puking right now, listening, like the PFAA just being like, no, the athletes should be, we're the ones testing it. We should have a say in the legitimacy of the test.
Yeah. I think Taylor Self and that group have a Shut Up and Scribble podcast.
Oh, shoot.
It kind of talks about that stuff.
We're not as informed as we should be.
Yeah, I mean, I think that and Rich has talked about this, that it was his, like, it doesn't matter. Like, we signed up for the sport. The sport is the unknown and unknowable, and that's highly controversial, whatever that actually means. But at the end of the day, we choose to sign up for this sport that we don't know what the testing is going to be. So if you're going to choose to sign up for a sport that you don't know what the test is going to be, then you can't complain when the tests do come out that you weren't properly prepared for it, because that's part of the test.
Yeah. I mean, look, I agree with you that we are playing in the sandbox that is CrossFit, and that is, constantly varied across broad time and modal domains, which means the athletes, they really can't complain because that's what they signed up for. Jake, kind of going back to your question, I do think it's okay for the athletes to, either have complaints or simply say like, hey, we want to have some say in this, have some kind of collective bargaining agreement. I actually think that that's a wise choice to grow the sport. Like if the PFAA or someone else comes in and says, hey, we want to just kind of help, but then CrossFit still controls the testing body. There's nothing wrong with that. I think the problem I have is when, again, going back to the culture we have now, everything but yourself is to blame. Mm-hmm. And that's what I worry about for the athlete. If every time you make a mistake, it's got to be someone else's fault, or the testing body's fault, or the temperature outside, or I didn't sleep well. And instead of, just looking inside of yourself and, maybe actually thinking about what could I do better, that's where we have the downfall, one, in our society, but two, in the CrossFit culture of everything has to be someone else's fault.
When did you see that shift occur, Mike? Well, real quick, sorry. Do you agree with what Brandon said?
Yeah.
When did you see that start to change?
After I got out of the sport, which is a long time ago. But like, I remember in 2011, that regionals for us in the South Central was in Texas, and the temperature on the floor, concrete floor, was like 114 degrees, and all of our hands were completely burnt. I mean, yes, there were probably some complaints about it, but it wasn't to the degree that it would be now. And if also the mindset was like the person who finished the fastest on the hundreds workout at that year, I think it was a 22-minute time cap. I think one person in our region finished. Josh Bridges had the world record or whatever at like 16 minutes. So it was clearly like the temperature mattered. But at the end of the day, it was like we were competing against our region. So it really doesn't matter what Josh Bridges did in a different region. We're competing against our group. So sometime between then and now, I think it was probably when, Rich is not to blame for this, but probably when more money got involved, and you have these people start to get expectations that they deserve something, or that they have earned some kind of status if they make it to that point, and they are, whatever.
Would you agree, though, that as they brought money in, it was a good thing for the sport? And 100%. To help professionalize it, there has to be like some communication between athlete and whoever's programming the competition. And to professionalize, you kind of have to have better systems.
Yeah. And I think you have to also go through those growing pains of putting people on a competition floor in 114 degree to grow what needs to be grown. Because to be professionalized sport, the point of the sport is not to just figure out who's the toughest. To argue that point is like, that's not the point. It's supposed to be who's the fittest. And so it does need to be a somewhat controlled environment. It does need to be parameters around the safety and whatnot. It's not just like who can survive. So we have to go through those growing pains though of throwing people into lion's den and seeing what happens, and then being like, that was probably a little too much, or that was a little too far. So yeah, I think both of those points are.
Man, that would make some people uncomfortable.
Do you want to stir the pot more?
You're saying we have to put athletes at risk initially, Mike, in order to actually grow the sport?
We did do that.
Well, I think that every sport has done that, right? Like football, they used to use just leather. No helmets, leather helmets. And now they have you can even now in the NFL, you can wear a protective pad over your helmet. They allow that, which honestly, I think that's a good thing. And the athletes have stood up for themselves too and saying, hey, we need a better bargaining agreement. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think what happens is when athletes are just blaming everyone else for their problems, and the sports that have done that, you talked about the NBA. I mean, to be completely honest, their viewership is down more than it ever has been. The World Series this past year had 5 times or 4 times more viewers than the NBA Finals last year, which is, and don't quote me on that. It was somewhere in that range. It's just crazy, which is awesome for baseball, but that's like an indicator that people aren't watching basketball as much because they're complaining on the floor all the time. And whether that's actually the reason why people aren't watching, who knows? But it's just one of the things I think is going on.
I was going to ask Mike, how long did you own a gym for?
10 years.
When that shift was occurring in the sport, maybe you were or were not, you owned a gym still in the midst of that. kind of broad question. Did you see that shift in, like, did you see it impact your community within the gym in any way, shape, or form?
No, because we were never hyper sport focused.
Okay.
We were more focused on Gen Pop and what we were doing there.
Kind of go ahead.
Question on, and this may not connect, but I feel like I've heard with that you can go too far with trying to adapt for safety. And the question comes from football. I've heard, and this may be completely wrong because I've just feel like I've heard this, but with the progression in like padding and safety in the helmets, that the concussions are actually worse because they're able to take more hits because the singular hits don't affect them as much. And so it's actually been almost like a backfire with that. Could there be any way of that happening with CrossFit?
Well, I think it has happened with CrossFit because now the testing body is still extreme. You know, maybe they've controlled some variables like the temperature. Hey, we're going to do workout one at the CrossFit Games this past year early in the morning to make sure no one overheats, right? But if you still have 15 tests, and I think they did a good job this year. None of them were extreme, really. Like honestly, it was like pretty viewer friendly and just kind of like short. But like over the last 5 years, there were some really hard workouts and really hard days. You think back to 2015, 16 when they had Murph and people were passing out. Like
or at Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, there have been some really, really hard tests. What's interesting about the football example you just gave is I'm very interested in what comes out in the next 5 to 10 years with that, because I've also read similar things, is that they are not taking the same massive hits, but they're staying in games when they may even already have some like a minor concussion. They don't know it because there's more protection. But over the course of 40 plays or 60 plays, what happens when you pile that onto 17 games or 18 games in a season? But I think that still is the pursuit of safety. Like they're trying to help the players, and they're going to find out their mistakes later on. And we do that. I mean, talk about nutrition. This is me going on a tangent, but like think about how many diet fads we've gone through of like, oh, this is the one. And then research comes out and it's like, well, that's not the one. It's like, we have to go through that process.
How has CrossFit HQ ever come out and openly like stated, hey, listen, the sport, I mean, well, they do in the L1, right? The sport and health are different, right? Like, but have they ever just like blatantly said like, hey, look guys, this is sport. This isn't healthy. It's inherently going to be less safe. And I'm not advocating that we don't take safety precautions. I'm not saying that. Like, are we aware of them ever making that statement? Like,
I mean, I think Castro's probably said that somewhere along the lines. Like, it makes me think about Tony Budding saying it of the 2008 CrossFit Games, where he's like, these people don't know if they're going to even survive because they're doing 2 workouts. They normally just do 1. So like from that perspective, like, yeah, they've hinted at it for like, this is not the health track.
Well, I think that was one of the reasons why Glassman wanted to kind of have a little bit of a push between the two. And in my opinion, that does make sense. Like they still need to be branded together. Like we want people to come into the gym and build these great affiliates because they watch these amazing athletes on TV. Like that I think that there's this natural, like kind of like cyclical progression that happens. You watch on TV, you fall in love with it, you go do it.
From what we've been told recently, that's not even, you know, the documentation that we were shown, or, you know, that the sport doesn't actually play that big of a role.
Yeah. I mean, everyone that has any common sense, I don't believe it at all. Like everyone that has any common sense knows that that's not true. I love it. You go into an affiliate and you ask people how they showed up. Now recently that may be the case, but when the numbers started dropping in 2018, it wasn't because people weren't watching on TV. Every person that was in my affiliate at the time, they came in because they saw Rich Froning.
Yeah, anecdotally, that makes no sense to me because it's how I came in. It's how everybody I knew came in. It's like everybody in my affiliate came in. Like I cannot, everybody would walk in and go, how'd you, like you would always ask the typical, even when I opened a gym, how'd you hear about us? Or like, what made you, oh, I just, I watched ESPN or I watched Rich Froning or whatever.
And by the way, why would someone want to get a muscle up?
Yeah.
If they just wanted good fitness, is like, well, because I saw someone else do it. Yes. And I want to be able to do that. Or I want to be able to handstand walk, or I want to kick up on my hands.
I mean, golf is a totally different, but it'd be like saying, don't go to the golf course and practice golf because you're never going to be on the PGA Tour. Yeah. And like trying to separate those things out. Like everybody's striving to be the best, even if they know they're not ever going to be there.
But you're saying your gym at the time, like what was happening with this, let's call it the softening of the modern CrossFit athlete.
Well, I don't think you see that unless you're like talking, but rubbing elbows with those people and hearing the complaints of the athletes and things like that.
You're saying like the community, right? When we say community in CrossFit, we mean like the people in the local affiliate.
Yeah.
They're not even aware of that.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I want to turn it on its head a little bit, because I still think that most of the athletes are actually very, very tough, and they're fitter than they've ever been, right? Like, I mean, just objectively, the athletes that are competing now on the floor are doing
not
things.
Calling it the softening.
I think I'm definitely tougher and fitter than they are now.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I genuinely think that most of the athletes probably are just as tough. Even like, I know that, Rich says something different, but like the reality is that they're doing things that are so incredibly amazing. I think just Rogue just happened, and you see what they're doing and how fast they're going. Like, they're much fitter, and some of them are probably much tougher. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts then on, is it, maybe there's complaints coming out because the testing body has even gotten harder, right? Like, there's heavier loads and more complex movements and more competitions throughout the year, and more testing in the competition that's actually requiring them to overreach so much that they're just trying to pull it back in.
So you think the athlete is tougher? They're not softer, but they just complain more. Is that?
That's what he's saying. And I think,
I'm trying to pinpoint this.
When you explain it that way, I think there's probably a lot of truth to that, because the reality is we were probably not even fit enough to overload our system enough to warrant some of the complaints they're having now with the breakdown of their body and stuff like that. They're handling competitions that have way more loading, way more contractions, and more frequently. Whereas when I was competing, it was regionals, or the open, and then regionals, and then maybe you made the games, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like, you maybe did another local competition, but that was pretty much it. Whereas now they're fit enough to handle a regionals weekend that's harder than it was then, probably. At the very least, they're going faster and stacking all these other high level competitions on there. So there's a more awareness to what the body can actually handle, because we were not fit enough yet to even I think
that's really what's happened, is they're so fit now that they can do these like crazy number of contractions across the weekend. And that does get dangerous at some point. If you're doing hundreds of chest to bars and then legless rope climbs and muscle ups, like there's so many contractions on the shoulder girdle and the scap and the lats that there is a inherent risk for injury. And so some of those conversations I think are healthy and good. We're obviously talking about this because we want to stir the pot a little bit. We'd love to know what you guys think. Like,
we're not even good at stirring the pot.
No,
I don't think.
But just in general, like it would be cool to like have a bigger conversation with like a bunch of people of like, what do you guys think? Where is the sport? Like, how much fitter is everyone? Is it like exponentially fitter than they were, back in 2010? Obviously that's clear because of the testing body has changed so much.
Yeah. Well, I think it's obvious. And I think there's plenty of, like I said, I explain it to some of our athletes. Like, it used to be trying to get you, and we've talked about this, trying to get you fit enough to just complete the test. And that's no longer the case. That's an understood. Now it's about how fast can you go through the test. And that changes what it does to your body when you're going at a test, a regionals weekend, where I'm just going through trying to complete the test. Whereas now every workout is a race, no matter what the loading is.
Insane.
They're still able to race it no matter what the loading is. Whereas we were like, ours were all like, you're just trying to survive and get another hang clean at 225.
A good example of this, because I was having this conversation with another coach, is one of the games workouts that was super simple but fun to watch was the run down and back, and then the 6 snatches. They had to do was like 155, 105. If that were tested in 2010, one, half the field wouldn't have finished in the time cap because they just wouldn't have been able to do the 30 snatches at 155. But two, I don't think anybody would have been able to do it unbroken and still sprint.
Yeah.
And almost everyone did it unbroken and sprinted the entire time, especially those that finished in the top 10. So it's just like it's a totally different world at this point.
Well, again, to draw it back to golf for whatever reason that's come up, a lot of times we as amateurs or people who dabble in it can't understand how it can be damaging to the back to swing a golf club.
Yeah.
Until you are Tiger Woods and you're swinging literally 1,000 times a day. Now you start to see, hey, this is a lot of wear and tear on the back. I got to do other stuff.
They're swinging
to take
too,
care
right?
Of it. Yeah.
Like you actually see them in person, you realize, it doesn't look like they're swinging that fast, but he's like getting after it. It's really impressive to see. And the same thing is true in CrossFit. When you actually are standing there on the floor and you're looking the same level as the athletes and they're going through this and cleaning 275 like it's nothing, and then doing muscle ups and burpees as fast as I would do in just a 1-round sprint workout. It's incredible that they're able to sustain that over 15 or 20 minutes.
And we can't conceptualize how much toll that takes on the body over time. So to your point, they have a strong leg to stand on when they make some of those
If you
critiques.
could sit all the 2025 CrossFit Games athletes down and the topic or one thing that you had to tell them, that here's one thing I want you guys to take away from CrossFit in 2010. Like one thing like that I want you to adapt in your training, in your life, in your mindset, whatever it might be. What would that be?
I think for me, it'd probably be like the childlike excitement or curiosity of what can I handle? How can I approach this with like curiosity and joy of like, we don't know what is going on here, but I'm just trying to achieve as much as I can possibly handle, versus it being a job, versus it being like, this is my job. I'm going to make it my profession. So it's got to be this serious and this X, Y, and Z. We didn't have that mindset because there was no money in the sport, which is kind of like the old grandfather thing. Like, yeah, it was grassroots, but it was just curiosity of like figuring out what can I achieve.
How can you think you can even cultivate that now that money is involved?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think it goes back to
how would you do
values?
It? Yeah.
Because if I know ultimately, even if it is my job, it's not who I am as a person. I'm grounded in my faith in Christ, and that's who I am as a person, and that's where my value comes. So even if this is my job, I can still approach it with this, like, I'm just God's given me this gift of a physical body that's capable and that wants to, and that can grow in these things. So let's see what God gave me and see how far it can be pushed.
It's kind of like Namchev says, like the freedom, right? The belief in Christ gives you to just go.
Yeah. Because if I fail, if I push too hard and I fail, or if I don't, like, nothing's lost.
Genuine question for me though is like, how does that look different for athletes today? Like I know we've said that, okay, well, they complain about the sport. They're
from
like,
the past or from?
No, like today, like how would that actually, I guess I'm trying to understand better how that actually looks different. So I hear what you're saying, like be more free, push yourself more, as opposed to what? As opposed to what we were talking about earlier, like complaining about deadlifting or hinging too many times or squatting too much apparently at the classic. Or
yeah, I think that's looking at it more from a job and a profession standpoint, which is not wrong for some of these athletes either. But I think if you're looking at your life and what you're trying to achieve and where your values are, that matters a little bit less. You're just trying to explore. I always quote Prefontaine, even though he's not a Christian, to give anything less than the best is to sacrifice the gift. And you're literally just trying to see how much you can give with the gift you've been given.
Last couple of questions. CrossFit, do you think the sport of CrossFit is still around in 20 years?
Yes.
What do you think has to change, if anything at all? Do you think we need to change anything to still be around in 20 years? It's a yes or no. Yes or no, Mike?
No.
Okay. Are you serious, Clark? you really think we keep running its course now?
Because I
nothing
think
needs to change. Yeah, go tell me why.
Because I think the imitators keep it relevant. The imitators keep doing it worse.
Name it.
Than what CrossFit is doing. Ooh. So High Rocks comes in, it tries to do it. It's doing phenomenal right now. It's crushing it. But you are starting to hear people getting bored with it because it's the same test every time. And WFP, you hear they're trying to do it different. Hadn't really. But
why is running, the most monotonous thing in the world, making this huge resurgence?
Because other people have tried to do something different, and it's.
You think really running will then kind of wane again too as well?
I think running will always be around because it's a natural human movement.
Yeah.
It's like triathlon
but CrossFit running, will stay relevant because of its emphasis on novelty and variety.
Yeah, I think so.
As Bart would say, variety is the spice of life, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think the variety helps CrossFit. It would be interesting. I think that if they continue to try these new, harder, more complex movements like they do at Rogue, they actually may lose some of the juice because they no longer become races. Like there wasn't races. It was just like, okay, who can do the log bar muscle ups? Like it didn't even matter when you got there. It just mattered who was good at like that one particular movement. And that's not fun to watch. Some people disagree with that, by the way. I've talked to some people already this weekend that were like, oh no, I actually really like it because it's just unique. So maybe if it's just like a unique thing, but if CrossFit starts putting in all these odd object kind of weird things that people are always trying to learn, The same thing, like the crossover double unders and the strict pegboard that they never had an opportunity to practice and people couldn't do them. I think that actually hurt the sport more than they realize. And it would be better, in my opinion, to still do really hard things, but let the athletes know ahead of time what they're doing, let them perfect the craft, and then get after it. So in other words, maybe less unknown and unknowable and more known and knowable.
Yeah.
I hear that. And I don't think that my question, and I don't think these things are mutually exclusive, or maybe even not connected, maybe the better way to say that. But when the sport was growing at its most rapid point, how often were athletes failing during different tests during that time?
I think it was just, those were, like, looking back now, those were such simple movements to master that people could go and they'd get it really quickly. Whereas like some of these things are just like,
but like they had ring handstand push-ups in the 2011 CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And softball throw, and people look like idiots out there.
That is true.
I just think there has to be some level, both from the programming, the competition schedule and season, of continuity, right? Like some sort of
storyline.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
A storyline. Yeah, because now the games are,
which Castro used to be, and I think he wants to,
it's watered down a little because there's so much going on. Oh, then like there's Wadapalooza, SoCal, and they're all competing there, and then they go to Rogue and they all compete there, and now we get to BFP events. There's so many opportunities to see these people competing all the time. It's not even as fun to watch them compete. Maybe I'm wrong. I think, as always, you're going to get people go, well, Foster, you're wrong, because I want to see them compete every weekend. It's like, but the NFL, you crave it, like in the off season.
Yeah. You're like, when is September getting here?
Yes. Yeah. Like, and then you're so fired up when it does. And I think distance makes the heart grow fonder when it comes to some of those things. And I think having a storyline, a clear competitive season, the problem with that is it goes against the like, oh, but then we don't have as many opportunities to compete in the off season. We can't make as much money. We can't do this full time. I don't know how to solve that problem.
I mean, I think that's a legitimate complaint though, because a lot of people are putting their lives on hold, right? Mm-hmm. They're 27, 28 years old. They've never had a real job. Mm-hmm. They chose not to start a family. Some of them didn't go to school, maybe to help them actually get a job because they wanted to pursue this CrossFit thing, but they're 7 years into it and they haven't made any money.
You know what you can do? You can always go coach online on the side. That's a joke. That's what they all choose to do. Yeah. Just start a program. Yeah, just start another template.
Look, not to go down a different rabbit hole, but I think that's one of the most concerning things for me as a coach is how am I best servicing my athletes if I have a lot of young athletes who have foregone all of the normal things that we would do in life. Again, rooting yourself in a job that's, sustainable and is something that allows you to progress up the ladder as you age, starting a family, building yourself in a community, whatever it may be, because your whole focus is on this CrossFit thing that's not paying you any money, right? That's a legitimate concern, at least of mine. And I have a lot of athletes that are in that boat, but they do it because they love it, which I don't think is a bad thing. But how many are going to regret it at 35 when they look back and they're like, man, I just worked really hard for 12 years and I've got nothing of it. Yeah.
I think that's where our coaching philosophy comes in. I don't have a ton of people in that, but I have, and I've always encouraged things outside of the sport.
Yeah.
And I've seen too many people get burnt out because they go completely all in and what that looks like. And they reference like Rich or Frazier, and like they did that. And it's like, yes, they did. Also, after they had made some money, also they're kind of an anomaly, and not everybody's like that. More often than not, I've seen people perform better when they have something else going on outside of life.
The problem is in their minds, they're like, how do I know I'm not the anomaly?
Yeah. Because
let's run you through an assessment week and I'll tell you.
Because you haven't made it.
Another podcast.
Sign up for 90 days with Mayhem Performance Coaching and we'll tell you if you are the anomaly or not. Yeah.
All right, Jake, we got to get out of here.
That's how we're going to wrap it.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you next week.